Hello, everyone. I'm Brien Lundin, and I'm here with the Gold Newsletter YouTube channel. Please subscribe at the button below. And we feature on this channel interviews with some of the more dynamic junior mining companies out there in today's market. So, with that said, I'm especially pleased to welcome Tara Christie, President and CEO of Banyan Gold, symbol BYN on the Venture Exchange and BYAGF on the OTC. Tara, I am very familiar with your story, which to be frank with everyone, I think is a very dynamic and exciting story. But I'd like you to, or our job here is to bring everybody up to speed. And one of the ways, what I'd like to do first is kind of position where Banyan is in this little small universe of junior mining stocks. I've made an argument to my readers that this downtrodden market of the past couple of years has created a really rare and exciting opportunity where investors can get the same kind of potential as a grassroots exploration play, the kind of company that can go up 4 or 5 times in value with the discovery, but they can get that kind of potential with a more established company that has a project with very large resources in many cases, and in some cases, economics and de-risking and all of the rest. So that presents a lot less risk for the same kind of potential that you would typically get in a much riskier play. So all of that said, can you tell me what Banyan has to offer in this regard? And, does it fit that mold, and in what ways does it do that?
We fit that de-risked mode quite a bit. We've already got a 6.2 million ounce inferred resource. It's on surface, near surface mineralization. We have infrastructure already on our property, roads, power, cell phone service, even fiber optic cable, and we're right beside 2 mines. And, it's kind of that if you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
This is the newest mining district in Canada, and we're seeing tremendous discoveries from Snowline, Sitka. Victoria Gold's Raven is only 4 kilometers from us, and that's a really exciting high grade. Plus, we have Victoria Gold, a producing heap leach mine from this, this tombstone sweet mineralization. That's really exciting. And here we are, we just put out results this morning showing we're continuing to grow the resource beyond that 6.2 million ounces. This is a remarkably consistent deposit. And, we believe there's lots of room to continue to grow this deposit as well as de-risk it. And we've been working on the de-risking side. We've already got the infrastructure. This is a jurisdiction where you can permit. We've got 2 mines that are permitted right beside us, particularly in areas that already have roads and infrastructure. That's a huge advantage. We've started, our baseline work for our environmental. We've started our metallurgical work, some preliminary engineering, and that's all the stuff that you need to do as you de-risk it. Yeah. And I think, in this gold cycle, which, we all know the majors have not replenished their resources and reserves. And here we are sitting with a 6 million ounce resource is substantial for almost any gold company. So I think we're in a really great position.
Yeah, it seems so. And I'd like to get into some of those aspects that make it particularly attractive in a moment, or get further into it. But let's set the stage a bit more. Tell us a little bit more about the deposit itself, its geometry, grade characteristics, potential for growth, etc.
Okay, so 6.2 million ounces, the grade of that overall is 0.61. Right now, the resource has 3 deposits. The airstrip deposit, which is a calcareous replacement deposit, it dips at about 60 degrees. It's a 90 to 110 meter thick package of rock. But the primary deposit, which is almost 4 million ounces in the resource right now, is the Power Line deposit. And with the results we put out this morning, we can see that it's connected with Oryx Hill. So it's going to make sense to start talking about that as one deposit, with it being contiguous, very similar. It's a sheeted vein deposit. These intrusion-related deposits, you get these quartz-bearing sheeted veins that have gold, lots of visible gold. Ours are dipping roughly horizontal at about 15 degrees. So this is now, our largest deposit with both Power Line and Oryx Hill connected. And the drilling that we did also continues to expand Oryx Hill to the east. We know there's room for it to grow particularly to the east and the south. To the west, we know the mineralization continues. The overburden gets a little bit deeper, but it's definitely got room to grow. And airstrip, we haven't worked on airstrip since 2019. We know it has room for growth. We've just been so focused on expanding Powerline and Oryx Hill. So yeah, these deposits, there's still room for that to get over that. I think 8 million is a really critical number in the market. 5 million is important for being a deposit, which will, a major starts to take a look at, because, million ounce deposits are no longer, unless they're super high grade and have infrastructure, are really tough for people to raise the capital for. So, this type of deposit, 5 million ounces. And then do we have the potential to get to 8? I believe we do. So I think that makes us quite exciting. We do have some higher grade within that deposit, and you can see it in some of our results. And that's one of our plans for 2024, is certainly focusing on understanding that higher grade and how we can put it together into, mind your high grade first is how you really make the economics of a project work.
Yeah, and let's explore that a little bit. A couple of things. I see the obvious potential when I look at the maps for expansion, because you have the 3 primary deposits. You have some gaps that couldn't be filled in between those, but you also have lateral expansions of those deposits, and not even considering depth, which we can talk about a little bit as well. But in a large project like this, bulk tonnage, you really want to try and find those sweet spots in the high grade. And you and I have talked about this over the last year or so, about where the high grade sweet spots are, and you've kind of assured me that we already have them. And I saw that in the results released today. You had some about 1 gram material over significant widths. And as I look over the historic results, you really have a lot of that in this deposit. How does that geometrically fit with the rest of the deposit, where you can maybe use those as the starter pits, or what you mine first, as you say, to try and turbocharge your economics?
So, looking at our inferred resource, most of the holes are at 100-meter spacing. That's a pretty wide spacing.
Right.
So yes, we've encountered some of these higher grade areas, and we see some trends. We certainly have a northern trend, which roughly goes east-west, which is closer to the surface, and then one kind of to the south, which is a little bit deeper, but also seems to be real. And the real truth telling and, drilling out your high grade will be when we start to infill drill in some of these areas. And not only will that upgrade the resource to indicated, which we'll want to do as we advance the project, but it'll also confirm some of those higher grades. So some of the modeling work, we spent a lot of time this winter, because we weren't drilling. We spent a lot of time going through our data, modeling it, looking at it different ways, talking to different experts, trying to understand how and where we can find that higher grade. And then, we got to get out and drill it off. And that's really, we can talk about it and we can show what we know about where the higher grade, and, on the maps that we have, there's clear patterns on where we expect the higher grade to be. But then you got to get out there and test that geology. And that's what, and then once you get that, then you can start designing your mine plan around, mining some of the higher grade stuff up first. And you see it in the sensitivity chart.
Yeah.
Of course, if we were to use a 0.5 cutoff, we'd have 4.5 million ounces globally at 0.95. So, there's lots of indicators saying that it's there. Now we just have to get out and show that it's there.
Yeah, you're stealing my thunder there, Tara. That was my next question. And when you look at that sensitivity table, that's another thing that hit me, is if you take your cutoff and raise it just to 0.5, you don't lose that much, and it's still a world-class deposit. And at that point, it essentially becomes fairly high-grade open pit deposit of that size. So that's really impressive. And I would guess that correct me if I'm wrong, but that kind of implies that the surprises that every project provides along the way, your surprises are more likely to be positive surprises as you get more drill density around those high grade targets that are now just kind of popping up in the inferred resource.
Yeah, and you're looking at that sensitivity chart. That's some of the work that we did over the winter, was looking at different cutoffs and then actually looking, well, where's the pit then? And so that kind of gives you an idea of the distribution of the high grade. It's one of the techniques that we've used. this last winter to analyze our data. So, certainly and increase our odds of having success, as you're talking about, what is our upside, and, do we have more upside versus downside? Having done that work and modeled it a few different ways to give us where our high grade areas are potentially, certainly increases our odds of success. And that's one thing that I tell my team, and we've been thinking about, what could we do? What do we know? What could we do to improve our odds of success? And then, do some of that work, and then, ask that question again. Okay, what now can we do to improve our odds of success? So that's this deposit is quite remarkable in how consistent it is, and that's given us lots to work with.
Yeah, and it seems like you mentioned your team, and from looking at your corporate organization, it seems like you do have a very highly qualified team, and one that is built now for some of that more, I guess investors think, some of the more boring work of doing the technical studies, the environmental baselines, the permitting progress, the metallurgical work, et cetera. But that's so important when you have a project that is sitting out there like a prize for the majors or some group to come in and take over. What they want to see is all of that de-risking, or as much of that de-risking being done. How does that fit into your plans, say, this year?
It's a critical part of it. So, bringing on Kai Hoffmann last year as my VP project development was a really key addition. We've got really strong geology, our exploration, we're growing this deposit, but having that piece to lead our metallurgy internally, start to do some of the preliminary engineering, think about the studies that are ahead, and the baseline environmental work. And we have a big advantage in that we have all the baseline data from Hecla, formerly Alexco, right beside us, which interestingly, Kai was part of permitting, and then he's worked on lots of projects all across the Yukon. So he's bringing that wealth of experience in that area to our project. And we've already got years of data. And that's one of the problems with projects. Majors pick up a project and then they discover there's a whole bunch of stuff that, or maybe they knew it buying it, that one, they have to start from square one on the baseline environmental or the metallurgy. And so we're really working hard to tick those boxes so that when people come knocking on the door, we can say, hey, here's the recipe card of what we've done, and here's what needs to be done, and here's, a realistic timeline to move it forward. And so, making sure we're doing our own internal risk assessments of what it is that, needs to be done to really make this project a compelling project to move forward.
Yeah, because if you have not done that kind of work, there are companies that just won't approach you or would not consider a purchase because of the risk involved. But also, a lot of those steps that are seemingly boring, they would apply a discount toward that if they have not been done. So you're really maximizing the value, it seems right now. But the resource, it's big. It's 6.2 million ounces. You released results today that were very impressive and extensive, in line with previous results and even better in some cases. That's post-resource estimation. How much drilling do you have post-resource, and how much more do you have? Because it's obvious from these results today, it's already grown from that level to some extent, not determined yet. How much more exploration work, drilling work are you going to be doing this year, and how is that going to potentially impact the resorts, very generally, speaking?
So post-resource, we have 24,700 meters of drilling.
Oh, and really? That much?
Yeah, so that was last year's drilling. We actually ended up stopping drilling in August when the forest fires were around. Right. And that, that's why we had a strong treasury now of $7 million, because we decided to wait for some results. It didn't seem like the market was rewarding good drill results anyway through the fall. So, and it's given us a lot of time to really focus in on understanding where we're going to add the most ounces, where we're going to find the higher grade. So what we're doing now, before we announce what we're going to do for 2024, is we're continuing to do some more analysis, like putting those results out today, to really understand what we achieved last year and where we're going to add the most value in the context of the current market. I'm still not convinced that the market's really rewarding exploration results, except for new discoveries. We know that the de-risking work, our metallurgy, is definitely part of the plan for 2024. You don't stop doing metallurgy until the day you actually start producing gold, because
even afterward,
even afterward, because you
yeah.
need to understand that. So, we're encouraged by what we're seeing, and we'll have some results out to the market fairly soon on that. But we know we're going to continue to work, and we've got options, and that's great. This is an exciting project, and we want companies that have do different styles of mining, whether it's heap leach or CIL, or to see what those results are, because this is large. As you said, the deposit's open east, west, north, south, but it's also open at depth. So these kind of deposits can be very, very long lived, and different companies are going to make different capital decisions based on what they see in the deposit and how much we've de-risked it.
And are you getting higher grades at depth? Haven't you started to identify some higher grade zones at depth?
We've only drilled a few deep holes. We drilled a hole at Power Line last year because, we've always said we think airstrip crosses underneath Power Line. And so, we've drilled to like 480 meters vertical, and we know that there's still Power Line mineralization. We don't have enough holes to understand whether, it's globally higher grade or at depth until we do that. We focused on what an economic pit would be, so roughly 200 meters vertical in the resource that we've drilled out, because I don't think the market would be rewarding deep ounces right now. But it's there for sure. And if we could and remember, this is a intrusion-related deposit, but we're in the cupola, or this area surrounding the intrusion or above the intrusion. We haven't found the intrusion yet. So even to have such a large deposit surrounding an intrusion in the metasediments is quite unusual. So, what's the strength of the intrusion? Well, we don't know. And where is it? Well, we're working on that story as well, and we've done some looking at the graphite, looking at high temperature minerals, trying to understand where the intrusion might be as well. But meanwhile, the real story is we've got this huge on-surface deposit.
Right, and you got what a lot of companies would kill for already. And that's another important aspect. If you're trying to build a project that a major or other groups of companies will want to come in and buy, leaving some mystery in there, leaving some upside potential is really important. But they need that. They need to see that this is not completely limited at this point, that they're going to get some surprises, and again, good surprises. Speaking about the buyers right now, the investors, the potential shareholders, what they get with Banyan, and getting back to our original premise, that kind of value that you have, what are you trading for now in terms of per ounce on resource and evaluation, and how does that compare with, say, what typical world-class large-scale projects like this have sold for historically in just normal markets per ounce?
So, we're trading at about $10 to $12 per ounce in the ground. So pretty low valuation, which gives lots of upside. Other Yukon examples, historically we saw, one project taken out at $170 per ounce, another at $250. Globally right now, there's in this market, we've seen things from 80 to 150. It really depends on jurisdiction as well. Even at those comparatively lower prices, that gives us a lot of room to revalue. And I think that, that's without speaking to what the quality of those projects are, what the infrastructure, what the jurisdictional risk is. So, we have huge advantages in not having jurisdictional risk, security of tenure, a permitting process that might be slow, but we've seen 2 mines go through it in recent years. And
in your neighborhood.
In our neighborhood right beside us. So, that's huge advantages for the project.
Yeah, and in closing, that's one of the things we want to stress to people is here you have a project that is ticking all the boxes, progressively de-risking, but already has all of the I's dotted, all of the T's crossed, is huge, world-class, and selling for a small fraction of what similar projects have sold for historically. So again, you get that kind of potential that you would normally get only in some kind of grassroots discovery play, but with much less, relatively less risk than you would in that kind of a play. Tara, I think that pretty much sums it up for everybody. Thank you so much for your time today, and good luck with the drilling and de-risking as this year progresses. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Brien.